One question that's been asked time and again in the last 2 weeks after the brutal terror attacks on October the 7th is this: who stands to benefit by butchering innocent Israeli civilians? And the answer to that is quite obvious. Iran stands to gain significantly from the recent events in the Middle East. The violence that we've seen goes far beyond just the Israel-Palestine conflict. It is not just another chapter in a long-standing struggle. The brutality that we've seen has a political intent, or to put it more accurately, an anti-political intent. It's aimed at undermining any possibility of political agreement between Israel and Palestine, and more importantly, the emerging peace détente between Israel and its Arab neighbors. The shock around the world at Hamas's attacks stems from the sheer brutality and the fear of a broader regional war. But the big question is, can diplomacy and deterrence prevent this from escalating into a much larger conflict? What is also clear is that the Middle East policies of the Western world are in a shambles. This is not just about the United States, it also affects the European Union. We are witnessing a global shift in geopolitics. It's often called as a multipolar world, where no single bloc or no single country or entity leads to some kind of Western dominance. America is no longer the world's policeman. In this new world order, more and more countries, more and more emerging powers are asserting their interests, which is inherently not a bad thing. It could lead to a fairer global distribution of power. However, what that is also doing is it's emboldening radical actors and their supporters to take greater risks globally, to launch more and more dramatic attacks across the world. Now just look at the last year or so. Russia's war on Ukraine, that has pushed the envelope of what is conceivable in foreign policy. Russia basically attacked another sovereign state in Ukraine, and neither the United Nations Security Council nor NATO could do a thing about it. That, of course, has led to more wars. Azerbaijan viewed a weakened Russia as an opportunity to put pressure on Armenia. For a number of years now, Armenia was considered as some kind of a client state to Moscow. There was a war in the Armenian region of Nagorno-Karabakh, which Armenia says there was a mass genocide of Armenian Christians. And that's not all. China too feels emboldened to pressurize Taiwan with increasingly aggressive maneuvers. And now this latest attack on Israeli civilians. And all of this has happened in the last year to 18 months. With this, the Islamic Republic of Iran and Hamas, the main backer for many years, apparently now both of these entities, Iran and Hamas, feel that an opportunity has come. Their time has come. Iran has been involved in pre-war meetings with Hamas, while the United States government so far has not confirmed any specific involvement or evidence of Iranian involvement in the attack that happened on October 7th. There is no denying the kind of joy that we're seeing on Tehran's streets. This is not just part of any street folklore. Iran has openly declared genocidal intentions towards Israel. Israel today is in a vulnerable position. Particularly, it has Hamas on the southern side, it has Hezbollah in the northern side of the country in the border with Lebanon, and it has a massive rocket arsenal that can target Israel almost at will. Already, we are seeing repeated attacks from southern Lebanon into northern Israel. More importantly, as and when Israel launches its ground offensive into northern Gaza, its soldiers will have to look over their shoulder northwards for any possible thwarting by Hezbollah. If Israel suffers heavy losses in Gaza, then Iran might open a second front in the north, and that would pose an existential threat to Israel. In response, the United States has dispatched two of its biggest aircraft carriers, the USS Gerald Ford and the USS Dwight Eisenhower, to the eastern Mediterranean Sea in a bid to deter not just Hezbollah, but also indirectly threaten Tehran with retaliation. Even if the United States manages to contain this conflict, Iran gains by hijacking the Palestinian cause. The message from Tehran is clear. They are the ones who are supporting the axis of resistance while the Arab states are normalizing ties with Israel. And that leaves the Palestinians much in the lurch. This is as much a signal to Riyadh, Dubai, and Manama as it is to Tel Aviv. From the Arab states being the upholders of the Palestinian cause, Iran has now taken that position. This message will not be missed on the Arab street. Tehran wields significant influence in the Arab world through its proxy terrorist groups operating in Gaza, Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and Iraq. Arab states are seen as powerless, almost like humiliated bystanders in this region, with their populations sympathizing more and more with the Palestinians. So Iran stands to gain influence, it gets a stronger regional position, and more importantly, it gets the ability to shape the fate of the Middle East. But this is also a loud and clear message to Washington. The ongoing war benefits Iran by undermining US strategy that led to the 2020 Abraham Accords. These accords aim to establish peace and cooperation between Israel and some of its Arab neighbors. The UAE, Bahrain, and later Sudan and Morocco got added to it. This was, of course, mediated by the United States. This was an American brainchild. The previous strategy was about a two-state solution between Israel and the Palestinians, and then peace. The new approach prioritized peace first, and then potentially moving towards a two-state solution. Iran and its proxy, Hamas, oppose any Israeli-Arab alliances or any improvement in the Palestinian situation. Their goal is the destruction of Israel, which they don't even recognize as Israel. They don't even recognize its right to exist as an independent sovereign state. Hamas, in fact, has explicitly said so in its Charter of Existence. Now, this explains why Iran and Hamas want to prevent a Saudi-Israel rapprochement, which is a key goal of President Biden's foreign policy. Talks were progressing, but the ongoing war and the potential Palestinian casualties make further reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Israel very unlikely in the near future. So much so now, the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has reverted back to the kingdom's age-old position that the two-state solution will have to be based on the 1967 borders, something that Saudi Arabia has not raised publicly for decades now. America's position as the global arbiter of power is under threat because its traditional alliances in the Middle East are being challenged. There is a direct threat to the NATO alliance in Europe's borders, and most importantly, there is the great power competition with China, which could reshape both global geoeconomics and geopolitics. America, the global Goliath, is now being challenged by the little Davids who are willing to risk their slingshot at America's eye.